Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our today's office hour on California sub-grantee selection process for the BEAD program. My name is Ali Eshraghi, and I serve as a program and project supervisor for the BEAD program here at the California Public Utilities Commission. I'm joined today by my colleagues from CPUC and CTC Technology and Energy, as well as Ready.net, and they will introduce themselves as we go through your questions. Here's the agenda for today's session. We'll start with a brief welcome and some housekeeping notes, and then this housekeeping notes will include an overview of how to navigate the Zoom interface as well as the scope of this office hour. We'll then move on to the main segment where we'll address your questions and provide answers to your questions. And at the end, we wrap up by outlining next steps and sharing some important reminders. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So let's cover the guidelines for participating in today's Q&A session. To ask a question, please write your question in the chat and wait to be called on before speaking if we need to follow up on your question. Keep yourself on mute until it's your turn to speak. If you're called upon to clarify any parts of your question, please provide the clarification in the chat afterward. This helps us accurately capture your input for inclusion in our FAQ document. We'll start with the first round of questions, giving everyone a chance to ask one question. Please avoid multi-part questions during this round after the initial round. And if time allows, we open the floor for additional questions. If you'd like to follow up on someone else's question, please write it in the chat and wait to be called upon. Thank you for your cooperation. Next slide. So this session is focused on questions about the sub-grantee selection process, specifically the topics covered in our previous webinars, as well as the documents that we have released so far. And as probably most of you know, the pre-qualification guide as well as the associated templates have been released last week. There will be questions that we might not be able to provide answer during the session. We'll take those questions back, review them, and include the responses in our FAQ document. If you have questions about the challenge process, please email them to bead@cpuc.ca.gov. As mentioned at the beginning, this session is focused on the sub-grantee selection process, and we may not have the subject matter experts present to address challenge-related questions. As a reminder, CPUC is required to follow the rules established by the NTIA, which administers the BEAD program. And as mentioned earlier, questions and answers from today's meeting will be posted in our FAQ section of our website. Additionally, we are recording this session, and the recording will be available on our website as well. Thank you for joining us today, and let's get started. So if you can take, thank you. So as mentioned, please put your questions in the chat, and we go through them in order that we have received them. So the first question, can you clarify the extent to which an applicant's existing funded middle mile infrastructure can be used as in-kind match? Ziggy, is this something that we can provide, or do we need to take it offline?
We can do a more elaborate explanation offline with a frequently asked question, but in principle, you can leverage it for in-kind as long as it's dedicated to this project. So you can't share it with another project, but and you'd have to evaluate it on market pricing, of course. But in principle, you could, but it would have to be dedicated to this project and be valued based on that.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. Is it possible for CPUC to award an applicant a subset of the project area it proposes? For example, in the case of overlapping applications, that are no smaller than a census block group. Could these awarded areas be non-contiguous? I pass it to Z.
Yeah, I have, is it in the chat?
Yes.
Ziggy, if you want to, this is.
Yeah, I'll take this offline. It's a complex question, and I think it requires a thoughtful answer.
Great, thanks. Would you add the links to the FAQ document in the chat? So my colleague added that in the chat. Hello, if a grouping of eligible locations is determined to be served within an existing area, can an applicant submit a project that covers 100% of the unserved locations, even though this would not be 100% of eligible locations as identified by the state?
This is Jonathan. I'm not sure I'm following the question. Tim, if you could elaborate on your question, we might be able to answer it for you.
Yeah, if the intent here is that there's that you've got a whole bunch of eligible locations, but you've already recently started serving them, and that's not reflected. If you'd have to provide evidence that you are in fact serving them, and you can then submit a $0 proposal. If that's the intent of the question, I'm not sure if we captured the intent correctly.
And if you're there and you want to raise your hand, we can unmute you if you're having problems at your end.
And quickly, while Kim, you do that, the next question is basically asking about a link to the map and BSL. So my colleague put a link there so you can use that. Thank you. So the next question is, you have an upcoming webinar on updates to program design listed on your BEAD events page. When will we know the date and the extent of these program updates? Jonathan, do you want to take that?
Good afternoon. This is Jonathan Lackitz. I'm a manager at the California Public Utilities Commission. We will be posting within the next 2 weeks, probably within the next week, a pre-recorded technical video, which will have additional information. It's not necessarily, I wouldn't couch it as changes to the program design. It's more information about how the requirements of our initial proposal volume 2 impact entities' ability to be able to propose a project design. So it will have more information, and there'll also be an associated with an associated PowerPoint with it. And it's geared toward providing applicants more information about sort of what does the requirements for instance, serving low-income and disadvantaged communities, how does that interact with designing a project in terms of picking contiguous project area units or census block groups. So more information coming next week.
Kate, go ahead with, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So it sounds like it wouldn't affect like the 90% alternative pricing feature, for example, those clarifications or updates.
We're not changing those requirements. We're just providing
Gotcha.
more information and some illustrative examples, because we appreciate that sometimes it's hard to convey solely through writing.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And related to that, and when we published the pre-qualification guide last week, we mentioned that we are going to publish the project application guide soon. So that should be coming in the next few business days. And that has also instruction and information regarding those requirements. So the next one is, what is the process of correcting non-BSLs that are found in the map? So if you can email those specific locations, and your question to us at bid@cpuc.ca.gov, and my colleagues could put the email address in the chat, so we can, because those are case by case, we can review those and basically take it from. So Kim, thanks for updating us that you have emailed your question. We go through your question offline and get back to you. So the next question, for alternative backup pricing proposals that propose to serve at least 90% of locations in the project area, but less than 100%, is that at least 90% of the total BSLs, or is it at least 90% of the unserved and at least 90% of the underserved? Ziggy? You're mute if you're speaking.
Sorry about that. I prefer to tag that offline as well, provided a frequently asked question. And by the way, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Ziggy Fish. I'm VP for Broadband Strategy at CTC.
Thank you. So the next question, can the CPUC please clarify if the middle class affordable service option requirement applies to A, only bid eligible unserved and underserved locations within the applicant's project area, or B, every address including non-bid eligible served locations in the project area boundaries? Ziggy?
Only the locations that are included in your project.
Thank you. So the next question, when will deduplication happen to remove locations that have enforceable commitments from other federal state grants or are now served from private funds since the Fabric version you originally relied on? Can I defer this to you, Jonathan?
Sure. So let me talk about two different scenarios. So when we open the application round on April 2nd, the project application portion of our subgrantee selection process, there will be a map, the revised map that we made available that will indicate through a certain date all the federal funding account awards and also California Advanced Service Fund requests. Those programs will continue making awards past as we continue through our process. So we will be doing a second deduplication or reconciliation process, as NTIA calls it, after we have completed the subgrantee selection, but before we submit our final proposal. That second reconciliation process will be providing more details about that process as we, at some point during the subgrantee selection process.
Thank you. The next question is, when do you anticipate having project areas finalized, and do you expect major changes to the ones currently on your site as proposed project areas? Not sure if you mean project area or locations, but project area is like defined as it's been explained in our IPv2. So Ziggy, anything else you want to add to that?
So I don't know when, is it I'm sorry, the project areas, when will they be determined?
Yes.
The current ones are if not the final ones, you can more or less expect that they're going to be pretty much those, yeah.
If I can just build upon that answer. So in California, in some states, the state has defined specific project areas. In California, we are allowing applicants to define the area that they want their project to serve, as long as it meets certain criteria, such as it can be no smaller than a census block group. And there's some other criteria that it also has to meet. So the project area itself is being defined by the applicant. The smallest building block is a census block group.
Thank you. The next question is about CEQA exemption process for those using existing infrastructure. Unfortunately, we don't have the CEQA expert, subject matter experts on this call. We'll take this offline and include that in our FAQ document.
And I've digested the alternative backup pricing for the 90% locations a little bit. I had to reread it through a few times to understand the question fully. It's 90% of the eligible locations. So it's not 90% of unserved and then 90% of underserved. It's 90% of eligible locations. So I'm assuming that when you wrote total BSLs, you meant total eligible BSLs. And
That's right.
Yep. Okay. Very good.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So the next question for FFA grantees, if our FFA grant is insufficient to serve all of the locations in our area, is it possible to apply for BEAD funding for these FFA locations?
I think we'll take that question offline and respond to it through the FAQs.
So the next question is, in your pre-qualification guide 3.5a states applicants need to provide a list of the business and technical certifications and licenses that will be relevant. Sorry, this chat goes on. That will be relevant to the applicant's participation in the BEAD program that it holds nationally and in California. What are you expecting to see for the licenses and certifications upload? Joe would be able to answer this one, or do we need to take it offline?
Take that one offline, but we'll add some more information into the application guide as well.
Great, thanks. So we'll include responses to our FAQ document and make it clear in the pre-qualification guide as well. Thank you.
And I can provide a little bit context of what this question is about. This question is one of the, and that's, the logic of pre-qualification is to establish that you have the capacity to fulfill any commitments on a project if you are awarded. So do you have the standing necessary? Are you stable enough to participate in BEAD? And so this question really is asking you what, if you have any specific certifications, et cetera, and that are relevant to for example, a fiber project, or if you are doing fixed wireless projects. So you may, for example, list specific licenses of your key engineers, and certainly, at the very least, your PE license. So it could be a very short list, it could be a long list, it depends on your technology and what you consider to be skills and certifications that are required for your type of project.
Thank you. So the next question, could project expenses that are not covered by BEAD funds but are required to fully connect locations, for example, in home routers for subscribers, be included in cash matching funds? Ziggy, do you have an answer to this?
In general, matching funds are allowable. So, like, I'll take that offline. It's actually a complex question. So, yeah.
Okay.
There are nuances to this. I'd rather take it offline.
Thank you. The next question, is it correct that the community anchor institutions, CAIs, will be the third priority for BEAD grant awards? So can confirm that's correct. After unserved and underserved? The second part of your question, if so, do you have any sense of how likely applications for serving identified CAIs are to receive funding? Jonathan, do you want to provide input to this?
Sure. At this point in time, we're not able to determine that. After we receive after the first application round closes, we will be in a better position to understand. Part of the challenge is that, of course, we need to be able to fund 100% of the unserved and underserved locations in California. And then if there's funds remaining, we're able to include, or then we're able to start considering providing grants to serve community anchor institutions. We also appreciate that entities may include community anchor institutions into their grants. At this point in time, we encourage entities to not, if they want to include them, they include them with the full knowledge that their grant request cannot be applied to community anchor institutions. And that if we have money available, we will be expanding the process to include community anchor institutions. This, of course, is against the entire backdrop that the National Telecommunications Information Administration is contemplating some very significant changes to the programs, and those changes to the programs may overall impact how funding may be used in the future. But we have, like everyone else, we're waiting to see what it is they do.
And Ali, if you don't mind, while I still will provide a fuller answer in frequently asked questions, just provide a little bit of information on this matching. The principle is that it has to be an eligible BEAD expense, whether it's used for match or not. So the same rules apply. A pure home router would not be considered an eligible BEAD expense per NTIA, but many routers are combination devices. And if it's a combination device that is required to establish connectivity, so it's a provider edge, then it could actually be an eligible expense. And whether you put it in the matching or the non-matching column is then up to you. But the key is it an eligible expense?
So thanks, Ziggy. So the next question, will we be able to add collaborators in the portal to help complete filling the application? Joe, do you want to take that?
Yes, and the answer is yes. They do not need to register as a separate org either. Just one person from your organization should register and then can add additional users as needed.
Thank you. So the next question is, when will the portal open and how do we gain access to it? So as it's been informed, the pre-qualification will be open on March 25th. And there is information on our website, and my colleague could put a link to that in terms of registration.
Right, so you can register now.
Yes.
And when the portal opens on March 25th, you would have immediate access to it.
Great, thanks. So the next question is, can you confirm if the smallest project area is a census block group, can this BEAD program fund infrastructure to serve that entire census block group or only the unserved, underserved CAI locations in the block group? For example, if there are 100 locations in the census block group with only one unserved location per day, can a local jurisdiction apply for funding construct infrastructure for a municipal broadband utility serving all locations within that census block group with BEAD funding, or are we limited to only the percentage of the project costs that are directly allocated to serving that one location within the census block group? Ziggy?
Yeah. So the answer is no. You can't use BEAD funds for what is essentially largely non-eligible locations, the project funds have to be applied to the project area, and the project area has to have a certain percentage of unserved and underserved locations. There, if you allow the way NTIA defined project area, they allow for 20% unserved, underserved, but like for the scoring piece and for all the other elements of it, really what we're looking at is the BSLs that you are going to construct that are eligible locations. So you cannot cover, you basically do for all locations in a CBG unless they are a small part of the total eligible locations.
Thank you, Ziggy. So while we are waiting for the next question, to the previous question in terms of application portal, my colleague put the dates in the chat. So sub-grantee pre-qualification starts on March 25th and goes through April 24th. And the project application starts on April 2nd and goes through May 2nd. So this is the timeline, the updated timeline that has been released on our website earlier this week. And the registration link is also being posted on in chat. So the next question, for scoring other last mile broadband projects under technical capability category, can you please explain what cost effectiveness of future scalability to significant performance levels of proposed technology is and how will be evaluated? Ziggy or Joe, do you want to take this?
We'll take that in a frequently asked question.
Thank you. Do you have any suggestions or guidance for what amount is too high for an applicant's cost per location? Ziggy or Jonathan, any general thought?
So I think,
to answer this?
I can start off, so again, would appreciate any thoughts you want to add to it. So in the context of that, we have an incredibly short time to review applications and negotiate with entities if time permits. We're really encouraging applicants to provide their best price they can when they submit their project application. There's not likely to be time to go back and forth with an applicant about price. So we're going to be, we're asking for best and final offers, as they say in the negotiating world. Part of the challenge that we as the PUC are operating with under the NTIA's programmatic rules is that we need to make sure that 100% of the unserved and underserved are served or have a solution, that we've selected a solution for them. And that those solutions, the first priority for those solutions that's one set of criteria we have to meet. Another criteria is that we're supposed to be favoring fiber projects. So we're going to balance those two criteria to come up with an end solution package. So I can't advise what is too much price in an area, but I think that, applicants should put forward their best pricing. And if they feel that their solution is not likely to be a viable solution in that area, they may want to take that into consideration. But we don't have, at this point, specific pricing suggestions or requirements. We are meeting those two criteria, and we are also going to be operating to this extremely aggressive timeline. So, did you want to add? Do you have any other thoughts you want to add?
No, I think that's a very good answer.
Just waiting to see if there are any other questions. So the next question, can you elaborate on the priority of serving unserved versus underserved locations? My understanding is we want to serve all of both within a given PAU. When assessing whether we want to include whether we want to include a given set of PAUs in our application, would including PAUs with high numbers of underserved, but only a few completely unserved locations make an app less competitive?
I can take that.
Thank you, Ziggy.
So we don't distinguish between unserved and underserved here. We talk about eligible locations. We've conducted complex cost modeling that showed that the best approach to ensure that unserved locations are covered is to essentially include underserved and unserved in one package to make it cost effective. So because of that, there is no preference or priority in terms of the balance between unserved and underserved within a particular PAU.
Thank you. So the next question is, how long do you anticipate pre-qualification evaluations taking before applicants can access the full project application? I think there are two elements to this question. One is our review process, and the second part is what is the access limitation once they submit their to the project application once they submit the pre-qualification. Joe, do you want to take this?
Yeah, and I'll take it's a good question. I'll take the timeline first. So as soon as you finish and press submit on your pre-qualification, you'll immediately have access to the project application as long as the project application is open. So I recommend submitting that pre-qualification to as accurate as possible so you get access to the project app. You can start on one or many of the project apps. I'm not sure if we want to make a call just yet on how long the evaluations will take.
Thanks. Just giving it a few more minutes to see if there are any other questions. If not, we can wrap up this this session. If you're planning to submit two applications, one under the name of the parent company and one under the name of an affiliate, can you clarify whether a separate pre-qualification application would be required? Are there other company structures that would require separate pre-qualification applications? Ziggy? You're on mute.
Take this off. Yeah, take this offline.
Thanks. So the next question is basically asking for FAQ document. The updated FAQ document, this version will be posted in the next couple of business days. We are aiming for tomorrow, but the questions that we are covering in this call would not be part of that. Basically would be in the next FAQ document, which will be posted in the next 2 weeks. And for some of these questions, if we think further clarification clarifications are needed, we would include those as part of the pre-qualification guide. If applicant plans to I'm going to the next question. If applicant plans to submit multiple non-contiguous project areas, are there shared parts of the application? So I pass it to Joe for this one.
Well, you'll only need to submit one pre-qualification application for each or for each project area, for each project application. Everything is brand new the first time, so nothing carries over from project app to project app.
Thank you. Will updates to the FAQs and pre-qualification guide be formatted in such a way that it's clear that what's been updated or added? So in terms of the FAQ document, yes, that's basically we have version control and we have a column that specifies the version and updated dates. For the pre-qualification, we can take that offline and basically strategize around how we can make it clear once we publish the updated version. Okay, it's 1:40. Don't see any other. There's a new question. To clarify, each applicant files one pre-qualification, but each non-contiguous area requires its own project app. That's correct. Thank you, Kate, for that example. We'll take that input and try to clarify the elements that are updated in the new guidance. Basically, they're referring to Washington State Broadband Office and how the format that they use to clarify the elements that has been updated. Giving it another minute. Okay, if we can have the slides up. Thank you. So if you haven't already, please sign up on our website to receive email updates about the BEAD program. As mentioned at the beginning, for questions about California's BEAD subgrantee selection process, email beadgrant@cpuc.ca.gov. For other inquiries about the BEAD program in California, use the other email that we have, bead@cpuc.ca.gov. As mentioned earlier, we've been posting the FAQ document in the last couple of months every other week. We plan to post a new version aiming for tomorrow, and continue to do so with the goal of every other week to publish a new version. Over the next few months, as we go through the application process, we will continue with these office hours on Thursdays 1 to 2 p.m. And also releasing the webinars, providing more information on the different elements of the program. These webinars and office hours are open to anyone interested in attending. So for the office hours that we are basically having them on Thursdays, and the office hours are the webinars that we are recording and posting to our website. The registration for the office hour is available on our website. These sessions provide an open forum for stakeholders to ask specific questions, seek clarification, and receive guidance on the BEAD application process. Stakeholders are encouraged to attend these sessions to fully understand the requirements and opportunities provided through the BEAD program. These events are designed to promote transparency, collaboration, and success for all potential subgrantees. Thank you for your participation today, and have a great afternoon.